Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about a strange national addiction. In South Korea, there is a famous bulldog meme. Even if I freeze to death, I'll drink iced Americano. Whether it is a freezing winter morning or a humid summer afternoon, you will see millions of Koreans walking down the street holding this exact plastic cup. But here is the fascinating puzzle. South Korea is a country with thousands of years of profound traditional tea culture. So, how did it become a hyper-caffeinated coffee republic dominated by an American beverage? The answer is a complex story of intercultural dynamics, historical shifts, and spatial sociology. At its core, it is a story about a society status, sophistication, and a new identity. And whenever we talk about a society chasing a dazzling, elusive dream of reinventing itself, one iconic American masterpiece immediately comes to mind, The Great Gatsby. Today, we are going to explore Korea's dramatic coffee history through the lens of The Great Gatsby. Let's dive in. To truly understand this journey, we actually have to glance back even before the mid-20th century. Coffee didn't just appear out of nowhere. It first entered Korea in the late 19th century during the Joseon Dynasty. Historically, Emperor Gojong was famously known as the first Korean to fall in love with coffee around 1896, discovering it while staying at the Russian legation. At the time, it was served at places like the famous Sontak Hotel in Seoul. It is called gabi or Yang-tang-guk, meaning Western soup. It was an exotic, expensive luxury, strictly reserved for the royal court and high-ranking elites, a distant symbol of Western modernity. But this elite status completely shattered with the outbreak of the Korean War in 1950. In the novel, before he became the millionaire Gatsby, he was just James Gatz, a poor, desperate young soldier trying to survive World War I. South Korea's modern coffee history follows the exact same path. The war forced a massive, chaotic cultural encounter between Culture A, South Korea, and Culture B, the United States. Along with Military A, American soldiers brought combat food packets that contained small pouches of instant coffee powder. The presence of the US military completely democratizes this substance. Black markets around military bases started leaking instant coffee into local communities. By the 1970s, South Korea was undergoing an unprecedented economic boom known as the Miracle of the Han River. Just like James Gatz hustling to build his fortune, Koreans were working 14-hour days. The national motto was Ppalli-Ppalli, meaning hurry hurry. We desperately needed a cheap, immediate source of energy to sustain this pace. Recognizing this, a Korean company called Dongsuh Foods invented the world's first commercialized 3-in-1 coffee mix stick in 1976. This invention stripped away the Western concept of coffee as a relaxing leisure drink and turned it into an essential industrial fuel. Just like the young soldier James Gatz, early Korean coffee culture was entirely about hard work, speed, and economic survival. But as Gatsby made his money, he didn't stop at just surviving. He built a massive, glamorous mansion to protect a new identity, an identity of wealth and sophistication. Korea went through the exact same physiological shift. During the rapid urbanization of the 1980s and 90s, the landscape of the Seoul changed drastically. Millions of families packed into high-density apartment complexes. Houses become smaller and extremely crowded. Historically, traditional Korean homes had a sarangbang, a dedicated guest room to socialize. But modern apartments completely eliminated this open space. Young adults Adults lived with their parents until marriage, meaning they had absolutely no privacy. At the exact same time, globalization hit. Young Koreans watching American sitcoms like Friends developed a strong cultural longing for a Western urban lifestyle. They saw characters hanging out in spacious, stylish cafes. There was a massive physical vacuum in Korean cities, a desperate hunger for a comfortable, neutral ground. Korean youth didn't have the money to buy a retro mansion like Gatsby, but they desperately needed a stage to perform their new modern identity. They were waiting for a spark. That spark arrived in 1999. The very first Starbucks store in South Korea opened at Seoul. And just like Gatsby started longingly at the green light at the end of Daisy's Dock, young Koreans looked up at the glowing green siren logo of Starbucks. Starbucks imported a revolutionary sociological concept coined by American sociologist Ray Oldenburg, the third space. Oldenburg argued that humans need a third space, a neutral, joyful public sphere outside of home and work. When this American model landed in space-starved Seoul, it exploded. For $5, a Korean consumer could essentially rent a luxurious, air-conditioned living room. Buying the coffee was their way of buying a ticket into a sophisticated, westernized illusion. But this intercultural adoption faced intense resistance. In the early 2000s, Korean media coined a derogatory term, soy-passed woman, criticizing young women who ate cheap meals just to afford a Starbucks coffee. This social backlash perfectly echoes the tragedy of Gatsby. In the novel, the old money elite looked down on Gatsby, calling his wealth a burger fake performance. Similarly, in Korean media's aggressive critique wasn't just about frugality, it was a cultural policy. The older generation was essentially saying, do not pretend to belong a Western lifestyle that isn't yours. The $5 Americano became a battleground between traditional Korean frugality and a generation desperate to consume a global status. In the early 2000s, Korean critics feared we are heading toward that exact same tragic fate. They warned that by blindly chasing the American green light, we would erase our own rich traditions and end up as a cheap, hollow imitation of American consumerism. But this is where South Korea's story turns away from Gatsby's tragedy. Instead of remaining passive imitators who were just imported American culture, the younger generation did something completely unexpected to answer their critics. They took the foreign space and aggressively re-engineered it to fit Korean realities. This is the exact moment where the generation conflict resolved and cultural hybridization was born. We didn't just keep copying America. Today, Seoul has more Starbucks locations than New York City, but the way we use them is entirely Korean. To match our hyper-connected digital infrastructure, Korean cafes pioneered providing ultra-fast free Wi-Fi and power outlets at every single seat, turning the American social hub into a high-tech workplace. To accommodate our intense late-night studying and working habits, 24-hour on-step smart cafes emerged across every neighborhood. We even synthesized our Asian architecture roots with Asian Western concepts, creating Hanok cafes, where customers drink American iced coffees while sitting on traditional Korean heated floors known as ondol. By making the American concept uniquely Korean, the soy-passed woman controversy naturally vanished. Coffee was no longer a pretentious foreign luxury, it became a universal Korean lifestyle. We are now even witnessing a fascinating phenomenon of reverse cultural influence, where the hyper-aesthetic interior concepts or Korean independent cafes are being studied and exported back to major Western cities like New York and London. To wrap everything up, the history of coffee in South Korea is a vivid testament to the power of intercultural storytelling. It started as an American wartime ration, became a survival mechanism for industrial workers, and eventually blossomed into a sophisticated spatial sanctuary. Gatsby reached for the green light only to face a tragic end, unable to truly belong. When the green light of Starbucks first arrived in Korea, we are reaching for the same illusion. But the South Korea didn't just chase the green light, we captured it, rewired it, and built our own shining cafe republic. We took a foreign concept and used it to solve our own domestic challenges, creating a completely new cultural identity.